Hi guys, this is gsmo.com and I'm here with the Motorola Moto G30, the start of a new naming pattern for Motorola and a device with a very interesting color. We've already unboxed it, you saw that it comes with a bundle case, and you should know that this is a mid-range phone priced at just $200. It's got a quad camera at the back side, a big battery, and surprise surprise also a 90 Hz refresh rate screen, even though it's not exactly very bright. Okay, so aside from the hue we have here, there are actually two hues. They're called Phantom Black and Pastel Sky. And let's talk about the design first. Of course, considering the price tag, the device is made of plastic at the back, plastic on the side, and glass at the front. As you can see, we have quite a big chin and also a teardrop notch, plus reasonably thick bezels. Measurements are, I would say, rather large, 9.1 mm in thickness, 200 grams in weight. And once again, it's a plastic body, but it's quite grippy. I didn't find it slippery one bit, and the buttons responded pretty well to my touch. So we have the reached power button, we have the volume button, and here an extra Google Assistant button. At the back side, you can find the fingerprint scanner, which is also pretty comfy to reach. And the build is quite okay for this device. It doesn't feel fragile, so it's quite fine. Now the color here, I would compare it to an eggplant dipped in gasoline. I know it's a weird paradigm, but basically it's dark purple in the middle and closer to green on the sides. Okay, I have to say also that it's quite heavy and maybe not the easiest to wield with a single hand. Now we go further and we talk about the screen. It's an IPS LCD as expected probably. It's a 6.5 incher with a resolution that's HD+. Attention, HD+, even though we're getting a 90 Hz refresh rate. Big bezels as I mentioned before, and let's skip straight to the video playback in this sample here. Okay, so this is it. I have to say that the teardrop notch is not very bothersome, and the big chin doesn't bother me as well. Now, for certain, not a very bright panel. It's better to use indoors rather than outdoors, and the contrast was pretty poor outside. I struggled to see the options on the camera interface. Now, also the view angles are rather poor. You basically won't see much once you turn the device on the side, or if you try to sneak a peek onto someone's video or movie. So there's that. The only thing that's okay about this display is maybe the high refresh rate and definitely the colors. Now the pixels have an RGB stripes arrangement, and we go further and we revealed our measurements. As usual, we do quite a bunch of tests. We publish them here, and I'm going to start off with the underwhelming screen brightness. 285 lux. We usually require 400 lux to consider this test passed. Now we may be defeating some more modest phones like the Poco M3 or the Redmi 9C NFC or the Moto G9 Power, but those are in no way, shape or form landmarks. This phone is placed on the 380th spot in all the handsets we've tested, definitely not a compliment. While it's above the Poco M3, it's below the Poco X3 NFC and below the Xperia 10 Mark II, also below the Huawei P40 Lite. You can do some tweaks for this screen, but it won't help it much. You can mess around with the brightness, night light, styles, adaptive brightness. The colors can be set up to natural, boosted or saturated. And then you also have your display refresh rate, set auto, 60 or 90 Hz. Okay, so I will leave it to auto because it saves some extra battery. And now we go inside the handset for a peek at the processor. This one is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 460. It's definitely well, a lower end. At least that's what's written here. Let's see what we're actually dealing with. That's what the app says. And if you go here, the real identity of the CPU is actually Qualcomm Snapdragon 662. Once again, Qualcomm Snapdragon 662, an 11 nanometer octa-core 2 GHz chip, which you should be familiar with because you also saw it on the Xiaomi Redmi 90, the Poco M3 and the Moto G9 Power. Now as far as the other specs are concerned, we're getting 6 gigs of RAM, there's also a version with 4, and 120 gigabytes of storage. There is also a version with 64, plus microSD card slot, which is always good to have. Now I didn't experience any trace of lag with this phone, no matter what I did. Updates, multiple apps opened up, and if you want some gaming, maybe go ahead and try the new Jetpack Joyride 2. Nothing more complex than platformers, maybe some older racing games from 4 or 5 years ago. When it comes to benchmarks, rest assured we also did those. We go here, benchmarks, we start off with Antutu 8. As you can see, not exactly very impressive, but at least we were beating the Moto G Pro, Oppo A72 and the Galaxy A41. We scored below the Poco M3 and the Vivo Y70, just so you know. We go further to Geekbench 5, this is the multi-core sub-test. As you can see, we're just above the Galaxy A51, which was a pretty well-sold phone last year. We're also beating the Huawei P Smart 2021 and the Vivo Y20s. We scored below the Oppo A72, below the Vivo Y70 and the Xperia 10 Mark II. Finally, gamers will be curious to see what's happening here in the 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, and the score is pretty modest. It's above Poco M3 and Vivo Y70, at the same time stays below the Oppo Reno 4 Lite and the Galaxy A50. Yes, this phone performs less than the Galaxy A50 when it comes to the GPU. It's definitely no heavy hitter, it's not a gaming phone for sure, but at the same time you can use it for menial and regular day-to-day tasks without lag. Temperature is quite fine. In benchmarks we got only to 33.5 degrees Celsius and in games to 38.3 degrees Celsius. A bit hotter here, but still below the point of overheating. Okay, so we're done with performance. I think it's time to talk about the battery. I said it before, it's a rather large battery, 5000 mAh, lithium polymer, and with a 20-watt charging. Luckily it's done via USB-C, there's none of that micro USB oldness. Of course, we also have our measurements here. We'll go to battery and video playback. It's a pretty amazing top 20 material, 19 hours and 17 minutes. Now, it's superior to the Vivo Y20s, Galaxy A71 and the Motorola Edge Plus even. Also the Redmi Note 9 Pro to keep the device in the same segment. Now, this value may look impressive to you, but you should also know that it's nowhere near the Realme 7 Pro, Xperia 10 Mark II or the Galaxy A31. When it comes to continuous usage, things are still pretty impressive with 13 hours and 40 minutes. They're not battery phone level impressive, but still pretty solid, definitely superior to what the Poco M3 has to offer, the Galaxy A50 or the Oppo Reno 4 Lite. It's an inferior result compared to the Oppo A72, Xiaomi Mi A3 and the Redmi Note 9T. The charging is a bit on the long side. It takes 2 hours and 20 minutes to juice it up to the full level. After 1 hour you're at about 65%, should definitely last you 1 day, so that's okay. The settings for the battery include the battery saver, battery optimizer and optimized charging plus adaptive battery. It will easily last you 2 days no matter what you're doing. That's the core idea of the experience. When it comes to acoustics, we have an audio jack at the top and a singular speaker at the bottom here with these holes to mark it. We also have some special audio options in the settings, nothing out of the ordinary. You go here, audio effects, you keep it balanced or you add some extra bass, treble, vocalizer or flat, or just turn it off. Now, I have here an acoustic sample for you, copyright free of course. Let's listen to it. This actually surpassed my expectations. The bass is quite solid, the high notes are okay, and I listened to the new Mike Shinoda song and the voice was pretty on point. I have to say, it's a pretty pleasant sound. We have the mids, we have the bass, we have everything going for it. Now let's see if our tests confirm that, and we go here, volume power. We obtained 88.2 decibels with the bottom, with the only speaker test with an acoustic sample. This means it's louder than the Moto G5G, Vivo Y20 and the Galaxy A41 from Samsung. It's below the Moto G9 Power, Realme 6 or Huawei P Smart 2021. When it comes to gaming, things get more impressive, 101.3 decibels, and this is a great result. It's superior to the Moto G9 Plus, OnePlus Nord N10 or the Galaxy A50. It remains inferior to the Galaxy A31, Oppo A72 or the Huawei P40 Lite. I think it's time we got past the speaker and went to the camera. In this teardrop notch here at the top side, there's a 13 megapixel shooter with full HD video capture, and the back side finds us with a quad camera with a design pretty similar to the one of the Moto G9 Plus. It hosts a main 64 megapixel camera with PDAF and f1.7 aperture, plus there's the LED flash here. We also have an 8 megapixel ultrawide camera, 2 megapixel macro camera and a 2 megapixel bokeh camera. You can only shoot full HD with this phone at 60 frames or 30 frames, no love for 4K this time around. The options are pretty typical: cinematograph, portrait, night vision, cutout, group selfie, and a pro mode. Of course, the main camera will combine pixels 4-in-1, and it will do that to take 16 megapixel shots with a 64 megapixel camera. Okay, so I was lucky enough to catch a pretty sunny day after a long night of snow. So the combination is pretty interesting. A regular shot, ultra wide shot, so the colors stay on point, but the sides may feel a bit underwhelming when it comes to the details. Okay, we go further than that. These are the landscape shots. Not a huge amount of detail at first sight, but if you go ahead and watch this video, or actually go to our samples and see them on a large screen, the level of detail will impress you if you crop the image. Have to say that the 64 megapixel camera is doing a fine job, even with the sun in front of us. There's a bit of a reflection here, but the colors aren't messed up. Definitely some of the best blues I've seen. This is a zoom test, of course, not very impressive because we're working with digital zoom, so it's okay for $200. Several attempts at creating a proper macro from the top of an icicle. I would say we did fine. It took 5 or 6 attempts, but the result is pretty glorious, so there you have it. I have mixed feelings about the macro camera. Sometimes it hits the jackpot, sometimes not. More often than not, it handles it okay. So this is one of the best shots with the phone. It gets all the colors right. You can see the sun coming from the right side, and you can see here the way it's creating shades for the objects here. So you got everything. You got colors, you got details, you got the sun. That's why I'm saying it's one of the best shots here. And the colors are on point. This is the exact red hue I perceived. This is one of the best blues I've seen lately. The sun really helped a lot here, and the contours of the object are pretty well highlighted. That's something I loved. Of course, I used this Donald Duck figure to create some beautiful bokeh shots. And check out here the combo of snow and the creepy Donald. The way they're combined together and fused looks pretty mind-blowing. Okay, so bokeh checks out. We have here several selfies. I'm not pretty impressed by them because they had the beautifying option on, so they feel a bit, I would say, doll-like. So I will skip them and show you other selfies towards the end. Now we have several more attempts at macros. In the end, the result was fine. Be sure to deactivate the active photos option so you won't wake up with a ton of moving shots. Once again, close-ups. When it comes to close-ups, the phone is pretty high performing, and some portrait shots using a statue and its face in order to blur the background in a pretty efficient manner. Once again, those blues I mentioned before, lovely colors of blue. Okay, and this is a tough scenery. The sun was going down. We're in the shade here and a lot of snow, and the texture is quite fine for a phone that's priced at $200 or maybe less. And even more colors to enjoy. As you can tell, probably I'm pretty happy with the camera here, and the ultra-wide camera shouldn't be underestimated, even though I didn't mention it too often. So its only drawback is that the fact that the sides are a bit soft. And I promised you a new set of selfies. Now, be advised, these aren't the best actually. I mean, some of them are quite good. The expression of the face, the texture, the details are okay, I would say, but I've seen better, to be honest. Some of them have a focus which is not the best. They don't focus on the face properly, and they're confused by the quantity of light on a very, very sunny day. Now, the bokeh was quite fine with separating my face from the background, so there you have it. Maybe try to avoid those beauty shots I took because they have too much processing into them and the face doesn't look natural. And the focus, once again, not the most impressive in the world. These are daytime shots, and now we go to the low light shots. Some conclusions here. I would have to say that among the Motorolas priced in the same range, this one stands out through the colors. Maybe also the details. The zoom is underwhelming, you have to take a few macros to get one right, and the ultra-wide camera is just okay. And the selfies, I think I've seen better on the last 2 Vivo phones I've tested. The low light shots were definitely underwhelming, except for the moment you trigger the night mode. Now, if you look at them, they're tinted blue or purple. Now, if you activate the night mode, things get a bit more okay, but even in that regard, I'm not exactly impressed with the result. Now, if you have low standards, this should be okay for you with a night shot, but in general, not impressive. This is one of the biggest differences I've seen on a phone with and without night mode. Definitely avoid the ultra-wide camera. It messes up everything and creates weird light halos, but the night mode photos can actually be used. This shot has horrible lighting. Use night mode and, as you can see, a huge discrepancy, and it really pulls off the details quite well. So stick to night mode and you should be okay. Not impressed, just okay. Now let's talk about the videos. Okay, so it's time to see some videos, and I'm going to use MX Player for that. We have 9 videos in total, and as usual, the first test is the stabilization one. Expectations are being kept pretty low, and we are actually surprised. Once again, a $200 phone, maybe even less in some countries, without optical image stabilization and without any special type of extra electronic image stabilization. In spite of that, as you can see, pretty impressive way of stabilizing the image while walking and descending stairs. Not bad. And the image clarity is actually not bad itself. Here we have some colorful images. Now you can film in Full HD at 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. The focus is spot on. The colors are okay, although they may feel a bit more intense if there is a lot of sunlight around you. So there's that. Now the clarity is fine. Among the Full HD only phones I've tested, this is one of the better ones, so you should probably remember that. Other videos, well, this one shows the zoom, which is pretty underwhelming. Especially if you're going to watch this video on a bigger screen. Okay, and then we go further and we do another test. This is the focus test on a close-up and on the background, alternating between them, which happens pretty fast, and the image remains pretty crisp. I'm actually surprised by how crisp this focus is, especially close-up. And we also have a selfie video, which is actually not that bad. Even though the contrast is too intense, my face is too white, but the stabilization is focus are quite okay for the price we're paying. I said okay, I didn't say great. Okay, so there's that. There you have it. Among the Full HD only phones, this is one of the better ones. Of course, it cannot handle the pressure of low light capture. It's very dark, very noisy, and there's a tint of green in here. Just a little bit. And in spite of that, when filming and walking, the trepidation and vibration in the image is not as bad as expected. I think we're about done with the camera. It's time to talk about other things, and by other things I mean connectivity. Now if you go here, you're going to get your typical options. I'm talking about your Wi-Fi dual band. There's Wi-Fi direct, there's Bluetooth 5.0, there's GPS, AGPS, GLONASS, Galileo, NFC, and a USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom. And there should also be here FM radio, which you can see right here. And that's about it. We have a hybrid SIM slot. There's a nano SIM plus another nano SIM, which also serves for the microSD. And here we have the speed test app with all the results you achieve. As far as the Wi-Fi is concerned, we got up to 197 megapixels in downloads, 316 megapixels in uploads, which is quite fine. Expected a bit more for download. And for LTE 4G up to 105 megapixels, and that's download. When it comes to upload, 65.2. Expecting slightly more, but we're still in the ballpark of what a phone of this price should deliver. Now, software-wise, there are some surprises, and I'm talking about good ones. We're running on Android 11, and this is most likely the first Motorola phone with Android 11 pre-installed. As usual, Motorola keeps it simple with a pretty stock and clean interface. This is how the multitasking is done with this carousel here. Of course, you also have your split screen available. Okay, and aside from that, the experience remains stock and standard Google affair. You got here notifications and quick settings, and those include a screen recorder. The only way Motorola customizes the experience is with the Moto App, which has a few useful features. You can personalize your experience from here with stuff like fonts, colors, icon shapes, layouts, and of course you can change the wallpaper into something else. We have gestures, quite a few of them. And you can even replace these 3 buttons at the bottom with swipes. And we have the display features, including peak display and attentive display, which, well, basically they replace always on display. And this one keeps the, the interactive notifications available when the screen is off. This one is basically the replacement for always on display, and this one keeps the screen on when you're looking at it. These are the gaming features. We got a game time here with all of its options. We got a toolkit, we got screen recording options, and you can block stuff from bothering you while you game. Media controllers and audio effects complete the list. And of course, you also have your widgets, which are stock Google stuff, so there's that. As far as the pre-installed apps go, we don't have any trace of bloatware. There's your calendar, calculator, Chrome, there's your Google Suite, Gmail, Google One, Home, also interactive wallpapers, and Motorola, plus photos, play games, Play Store, podcasts, sheets, slides, and YouTube music. The special Google Assistant button from here triggers Google Assistant, and that's about it. Now it's time for the verdict, and as usual, when we're doing the verdict, we're also gaming. This is Jetpack Joyride, and as you can see, game time is being activated here with useful settings, and I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of buying the Moto G30. Okay, so I'm going to start with the pros, and bear with me because I think I may die in this game quite a few times. The back side of the phone is quite good looking. I'm talking about the color hue, which we're getting here. This color hue. Getting back to berry, steak fries. Okay, so nice color, a pretty solid build. I would say a rather large screen with 90 Hz refresh rate. Okay colors for the same display. And I should also mention that the battery is quite solid. We don't suffer from lag. We have a solid speaker at the bottom, volume-wise and on all accounts. We also have an audio jack, microSD card slot. We're taking okay close-ups and macros, good colors with the main camera, okay stabilization for the filming, and for Full HD filming this is one of the top phones. And stock Android 11 also is a plus. Those are the pros. On the cons, well, the brightness of the display is pretty poor, I'll admit it. The charging is quite long, we don't have stereo speakers, the zoom is underwhelming, selfie focus for selfies isn't that impressive, and there's no 4K video capture here. At the same time, low light capture was underwhelming overall. The design feels a bit dated for the handset, there is no future proofing here, and I'm talking about the CPU. And always be advised to check out the auto options. When I say auto, I mean auto beauty mode, auto live photo, and auto HDR. You may want to put them to manual to get proper pictures. Okay, so that's everything I had to say about the Moto G30. It's a phone which you'll buy for the battery first, for the audio second. I was really impressed by it, for the fact that this is finally a full HD filming phone which can deliver decent videos. In general, if you see a phone not capable of 4K, it's also capable of poor Full HD, not the case here. And its only drawback may be the screen, which is not very bright outdoors. So it's more of an indoor phone, which will last you 2 or 3 days battery-wise. It doesn't exactly cater to your gaming needs, but if it's needed, you got your game time options, and you can play platformers and lesser games, maybe even some shooter with some tweaks. And the clean and stock interface definitely helps. Not very sure what Motorola wanted to do here with offering us a high refresh rate and an HD resolution. Those two don't really match up together. That's all I had to say about the Moto G30 from gsno.com. This is a battery phone with good acoustics and surprisingly good Full HD filming. Bye bye.